I apologize for the background noise in this video, but what's going on, YouTube fam? It's your boy, the wisest and most powerful of all nerds, Brimezus, back in here with another YouTube video on why people be hating on the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And before I get into that video, guys, don't forget to 1, like this video if you're a believer in the truth. Dislike this video if you like the Batman movie and you're just a weirdo who like IQ points, or the case may be. Don't forget to cop some King Kamara, Brimezus, other type of t-shirts off my websites. The link will be in the description box below. And most importantly, guys, please subscribe to my YouTube channel so I can continue to give you guys more content on a regular basis. So without further ado, let's get on with the video. This video is based off a lot of the comments that I received off my review of the new Batman movie, where the go-to argument for a lot of these people that like the Batman movie is like, you're just an MCU fan, you're just a Marvel fan, go watch Marvel movies. It's kind of like when women watch some of my YouTube videos and the first thing is like, their go-to phrase is, who hurt you? Who hurt you? They want to look at the facts and statistics, the reason, the logic. They will say, who hurt you? That's the same thing, guys. So I'm going to break down exactly why people hate the Marvel movies. And the reason of it is, guys, is mainly due to Postmodernism. What Postmodernism is like, for example, as human beings, as much as we like to progress in a certain area, like whether it's art, music, video games, we sometimes like to regress and call that progress. Make things like more primitive, more simple, say, that's better. Give a few examples, like we live in an age like, you know, where graphics, go back 20 years ago, we started like improve a lot on graphics from like 2D to 3D and more realistic, have more physics, more options, more open-ended, yada, yada, yada. And then instead of continuing in that direction, a lot of the time we went to like games that like Fortnite, where you just like use a block to jump. You know what I mean? Like very simple like phone games became like the thing, and also like regular games became more popular among the population worldwide, as opposed to like regular games that are like more sophisticated. Or you can take art. You have like the old arts where people like would do paint murals of it by hand, or whatever the case may be, and then people eventually just make a square or a splash on a piece of paper. Like, oh, that's art. You're a genius. One of my most favorite examples is hip hop. For example, you go back in the early 2000s, you got people like, you know, the State Property Gang, you know, the Locks, you know, Dipset, you know, highly lyrical like rappers and groups. And nowadays you got like mumble rappers where they basically make sound effects and they hardly rap a lot of the time, and they're like very popular. And it's very dumbed down music where like people can get high and drunk to listen to, where like lyricism and technicality kind of went out the window a little bit. That's kind of the case what's starting to happen with superhero movies, where instead of like movies being like really good, it's like they're making movies really bad, and that's genius. But I'm gonna get more into that. So like, let's start with like Marvel and DC. That's the difference between the two, right? One guy, I'm not gonna lie, I grew up being a Marvel fan, but I've always also been a DC fan as well. And now I also grew up in an age where like, okay, there was like tribalism, like you had to be like either or a little bit on the forums where like you were a Marvel fan and like screw DC, you know what I mean, or vice versa. It was that rivalry that we always had. And that was good, cause like rivalry makes things like life sweeter a little bit, like sports. If sports didn't have rivalries, or boxing didn't have rivalries, video games or anime, for example, is great. It's hard to have a good anime without a rivalry, right? Life would be less interesting. So, but like I was still a fan of DC. I expected the good things about it, but like with Marvel, right, you had more relatable characters like Spider-Man. He was a teenager going through school, going through real life problems, living in New York City. Whereas like, you know, in DC you have Superman, who's an alien, who's invincible, living in Metropolis, a futuristic city. So Marvel always had like a more realistic like aspect about it compared to like DC for the most part, and more relatable and interesting characters, in my honest opinion. Where like it was more balanced. Where like in the characters in DC, they're like all overpowered. Like Flash can like literally like travel through time at will, and Superman can like basically lift the universe, but still get beat up by like regular goons or whatever the case may be. And then Batman for some reason is like on equal par with all those characters. It makes sense why like Captain America can stand a chance against like Iron Man, or Spider-Man can fight against Iron Man, or whatever case may be. Like it's a more grounded basis on that. But furthermore, like, you know, the storytelling in DC in Marvel is always like, I think, more compelling to me. I mean, DC did have some good stories, but like compared to Marvel, since the 60s, Marvel has always had the same continuity for the most part since its inception. So from the 19th, the same Spider-Man you see today in the comic books is the same Peter Parker you saw back then in the 60s. Same one. Whereas in DC, similar to the movies they have right now, like You have many different versions of Batman, many different versions of Superman movies. You know what I mean? Like there's always different. They're always like rebooting something back to back to back. And I'm not saying they've never done that in Marvel, because you have, like, for example, 3 different versions of Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire, you know, Andrew Garfield, Tom Holland. But the way they tied it together was very similar to how they would do that in the comic books. We had, like, for example, a Spider-Man from a different universe like Miles Morales, and a different Peter Parker from a different universe with the main Marvel continuity. They will blend together in a similar way that they will do in the movies. DC was just kind of all over the place, always rebooting. They do something, they mess it up, reboot it, they mess it up, reboot it. They always try to, like, they always have to reboot their storylines and their continuities to attract new readers, where Marvel does not have to do that. And that's kind of the case where I believe that the Marvel comics books are better than the DC counterparts on that aspect there. The thing is about the Marvel movies, they have it through phases. We have like over 10 years of Marvel cinematic films. And there are certain tropes. Now people like to say, oh, like you hate the new Batman because it's not funny or whatever the case may be, or there's too much action or explosions. That's not the major premise of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. There are some movies that favor comedy. Take for like the first Iron Man movie, it's different from like the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. Marvel has a habit of introducing like new characters like the Guardians of the Galaxy, or even like characters like Thor, who are the most popular superheroes, and adding a lot of comedy to those movies to help make those characters more relatable. But here's the thing about comedy. Comedy has to be funny. If people don't have to laugh, the writing has to be good. If I, for example, say like tell a joke that says knock knock, who's there, the mailman, it's not funny. If I say knock knock, who's there, your mom, you might chuckle a little bit. You know that's off the top of my head. Good writing, good storytelling has to make people laugh, and that's not what the movies are always based upon. They like real life has tragedy, comedy, action, dullness. Like it's like variety. Where like just because a movie has comedy doesn't mean it's bad. Like for take the Captain America Winter Soldier movie, didn't have much in the way of comedy at all. It was one of the best superhero movies of all time. Different Marvel movies use different ways of conveying their storytelling. Like Avengers Infinity War had a lot more action than Avengers Endgame, and Avengers Endgame was a lot longer of a movie. And personally, like I wasn't the biggest fan of the Guardians of the Galaxy movies because that's not my kind of Marvel that makes sense. I'm more like the street level Spider-Man, or even like things like the Punisher. I love the Punisher series, which just came to Disney Plus. So Marvel always has like different like flavors of delivery. Okay, so this whole thing that Marvel's bad is ridiculous. Marvel literally became like the juggernaut of the movie industry. It made superhero movies the leading genre in film. And it's a formula that worked. Very true, it's not a formula that can last forever, but it's also a formula that can continue to evolve. Marvel has always done a great job of pushing the envelope. DC has done it too with the Nolan trilogy. The Dark Knight trilogy has definitely pushed the envelope. And even though the action in the Nolan trilogy did not age that well, the acting, the directing, and the storytelling did. So nobody's 20 years from now gonna complain about Heath Ledger's performance or the twists and turns that happened in The Dark Knight Rises. Nobody's gonna complain about that because that's genuinely good writing and acting. Now these kind of things were devoid completely in the new Batman movie. The writing was horrible. It was supposed to be a detective movie. Batman could not figure out or decipher like El Rata. See, until it was Spanish, it would be like a detective movie. He couldn't tell like a rat with wings is a bat. He's Batman. Nobody decided to check the freaking floors. Had half the precinct in the apartment for a guy who murdered people. Let the guy escape on foot somehow. You have like a bunch of people surrounding people, including Batman, and nobody checks the floors. Like, come on, it was lazy and terrible writing and storytelling from the top down. But because it's like a regression in standards, people are like, oh, it's brilliant because it sucks. No, like for example, like there's instances where people like bandwagon or something and it's not that good, but sometimes like whether there's artists like for example going back to music like Jay-Z, even Drake, or even Lil Wayne or Eminem at the height of their careers, they're at the height of their careers because they're actually good. You don't have to like them, you don't have to be their biggest fan, but they're in that position because they were actually good, actually unique. And people like Kanye or whatever the case may be, they push the envelope of music, particularly Kanye. He made backpack rap like the forefront of hip hop, brought a whole new audience in, and continued to evolve. Now you can like his new music or not, but the thing is he still pushed the envelope regarding music and hip hop as a whole. That's what MCU has done. And people hate the MCU for doing the good job on the TV shows. It definitely puts the boundaries and the envelope for TV shows like Falcon and Winter Soldier, Loki, the What If series for animation, all that, those kind of things. And again, guys, I have been a fan of DC. I like the Dark Knight trilogy. I love it, actually. The Justice League cartoon we used to have, part of the DC animated universe. I love that. And that was an example of something that evolved. The Tim Bruce, Dwayne McDuffie, they took like the Batman animated series to make Batman Beyond. They got Superman. They had the Justice League. They continue to evolve that universe with better animation, better directing, better writing. That's how the DC universe should be. Now, if you want to make a good detective movie, you gotta have good directing, like I said before. But that was not the case. Like, for example, take the movie Us. Jordan Peele's like the modern day Midnight Shyamalan. I'm the first person to like comment on that or say that, but he's like revolutionizing the horror genre in film. He's not like using monsters or whatever the case may be. He's like using aspects of reality to kind of like haunt people. When the beginning of the Us movie, the main character, the girl, she gets choked out by her doppelganger in the movie. And in the beginning, you're like, what happened to like that? And that girl when she got choked out, like did the other doppelganger like take her place? But through directing and storytelling, the movie like misdirects you from that and makes you think that the main character is really the hero when she was really the villain the whole time. That concept is completely devoid in the new Batman movie. Like the Batman movie did not bring anything good to the table. Like they said, oh, like it didn't have no explosions, no fighting, no action, like the Marvel movie, and that's why it's good. No, it's bad. It didn't have to be like the Marvel movies. It could at least be different in its own way, in a good way. Just because it's not like a Marvel movie doesn't make it good. Just because it's trash, like it's equivalent to like a mumble rapper that can't rap like or freestyle on the radio, doesn't mean it's a good product. And we gotta realize that as a human being. That's why people are hating on MCU, because like everybody likes it, so I want to be unique as a person. I want to stand out in my individualism, and therefore I'm good. There's so many things wrong with that new Batman movie too. Again, this is also ran on that, like how the mayor gets shot with a military grade sniper round, doesn't bleed, doesn't get like a limb taken off, walks it off. Batman gets shot so many times at close range, nobody shoots him in the face. Like they're all shooting like stormtroopers. He takes a C4 to the face like it's nothing when it incinerates the other person completely. Like there's so many extreme plot holes that I don't understand how anybody could have enjoyed the new Batman movie in the slightest. If you like it and you really had a good time, good for you. But you gotta recognize trash where it's trash. Unlike the DC universe, the Marvel universe has consistently brought in new characters and new ideas to the table and made it work. They were able to stick the landing. They made characters like Iron Man, who was largely like a B-class character, similar to Aquaman in Marvel, like an A-class character, especially in the forefront of movies and comic books. Same thing with Captain America. Same thing with Thor. And if you look at the DC's most modern, successful movies, take for example Aquaman or Shazam, they resemble more Marvel movies than not. So yes, it's very true that the system that worked for the Avengers in the early 2010s is not going to work for superhero movies forever. You might have to change the envelope in a similar way that Jordan Peele had changed the horror genre, and it's moving in that direction. And here's the thing, guys, look, I'm a Batman fan. I wanted the new Batman to be good. I had no issue. It was not going to bruise my ego in any way to see the new Batman movie be like a great movie. Like, I've been a Batman fan. I've been writing a Batman movie of my own and Batman scripts. Like, there's many aspects of Batman that I truly love. And none of that was shown in the movie. There's no use of gadgets, no use of his intelligence, no use of his like skill, his wit, his stealth. None of that. His detective ability. People keep saying, it's a detective movie. The only thing he did that was clever, honestly, in that movie was, what do you call a liar that's dead? He said he lies still. That was the only clever thing that Batman did in the entire movie. Everything else was complete idiocracy. Anyway, guys, that's gonna wrap up my video. Don't forget to like the video, dislike this video if you dislike my Batman video. Don't forget to cop some King Kamara Brimezus t-shirts off my Teespring and websites. The link will be in the description box below. Most importantly, guys, please subscribe to my YouTube channel so I can continue to give you guys more content on a regular basis. It's your boy Brimezus. I'll see you guys next time.